So, I'm supposed to be discussing why it is that guys nowadays aren't approaching a lot of pretty girls. And I kid you the hell not, before I got onto the mic to record, I stumbled upon this very interesting article by Vice, which was talking about butt enhancing male underwear and apparently how popular it is becoming. And considering the way they made the entire thing look for us guys, I don't know about y'all, but I've never really seen a guy think to themselves, you know what? Instead of approaching very fine women with nice booty and, going for something that I'd wish to have, how about I go and I get male butt enhancing underwear so that I can have the booty myself?
Get ready for the battle of the sexes.
To be very honest, like the way these guys are making it seem as though guys nowadays want to have a bigger booty is a little bit exaggerated to say the least. Like, especially for us straight guys. The people in the LGBT, they can definitely have their liking of booty and, there's something to it. There's an attraction factor to it. But for us guys, it's not like we go and we meet each other and we're like, hey bro, how have you been, man? I'm liking the way the booty is growing, I like the way the booty looks nowadays. It fits really well in the jeans. Like, it's not like guys are sitting around saying that to each other. Or at least us straight men aren't exactly saying that to each other because we don't really give too much of a fuck about our asses. But in case you're uninformed on that shit and you decided to read the Vice post on IG, it says, and I quote, "While other brands have been selling padded underwear since the 90s, catering to men in wheelchairs and HIV positive men who'd lost fat in their butts after years of taking antiretroviral drugs, the rise of newer demedicalized brands suggests men are under growing pressure to present a thick and juicy ass to the world." End quote. Like, I know this isn't the full exact caption that's there, but still. Like, what guys are sitting down thinking to themselves, you know what? I really like how I look in a suit, but you know what would be a hell of a lot better? If it had some ass around it. Like, instead of me having that straight, proper look, I want to make sure there's some ass to complement the suit. Like, I know for a fact that I'm going to be considered as a more attractive person if I seem high status, but you know what would even make me look even more high status with this suit? A nice, well-rounded piece of silicone enhanced on my underwear to make it seem as though I have a bigger bum. Like, at what point do you think guys are gonna sit and be like, yeah, we should definitely go for that? As if we haven't spoken shit about wearing wigs, wearing weaves, getting fake nails, getting makeup and shit, all under the guise of trying to look prettier. Like, we spoke so much shit about that, but we're so ready to buy a piece of underwear that'll make our bum look big even though it actually doesn't. Like, make it make sense. We're the people that say that if you want something, go ahead and work for it. And we're so willing to go ahead and put money down on underwear, which gives us fake ass, which is something that we've spoken so much shit about. Like, if this doesn't tell you that sometimes people get the wrong idea, then I don't know what else is. Like, tell me that the gay community is really getting into that and they're really buying it and it's becoming popular amongst the LGBT. Fine, I'm okay with that. But you start telling me that straight guys are like, oh, we want something that enhances our butt? Fuck that shit. Like, maybe 2% of us, but it does not speak towards a massive majority of men. So please, get your facts right about men. Kind of like the same way I get my facts right about guys on this podcast, which I probably should have started by now. And I'm speaking nothing but straight facts when I start by saying, welcome to Breaktime on Westside, your number one Breaktime podcast, coming to you from Nairobi, Kenya. The man on the mic is a man who likes the ass big, thick and juicy, especially when it jiggles a little bit. Just not on a man. He's a man whose favorite form of cardio is skipping leg day. It is none other than your tall, dark and mildly handsome man, Sir Denver B. The show is Battle of the Sexes, our weekly love, sex and relationships show, where I get to talk about stuff that, revolves around love and sex. Sometimes I talk about relationships, sometimes I say something controversially different. You might disagree with me, but there is usually a conclusion at the end of it. And if you do agree with the conclusion, if you don't agree with the conclusion, I usually like getting feedback from you guys on IG, and the handle to hit me up on is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, you can also hit me up on at Breaktime on Westside there as well. And on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. I love that feedback because we get to discuss about shit, and sometimes even those discussions can be brought on and used for further episodes, so that way we can help improve the nation and, the world and shit, And if you are using an app that allows for ratings and or reviews of the podcast, a nice rating and or review of the podcast would be highly appreciated. Makes me shoot up the podcasting charts and, makes it easier for the podcast to be seen. Also sharing the podcast with your friends is also a very good way to market me. So we can get most of this shit onto the world for people to critique and for people to learn from, and maybe sometimes get entertained in no particular order. But anyways, that said, we should definitely move it on to our main topic of today. I already teased it before we started the podcast and I do want to get onto it, but I'm a little torn between. Because I have two things that I really, really want to talk about. One, there was what Kim K said last week, which, got people very fired up. And there's about a sex story that I saw on Maurice Madeka's IG page. Maurice Madeka, for those of y'all that don't remember or know, was on the Fan of a Fan series, and we did Sex and the Shitty parts 1 and 2. Very interesting sexologist. There was a story that I saw on his IG handle that I wanted to talk about. Now, in as much as I really want to go into the whole Kim K story because it's a much more current story and it's a story that could fade with time, I do think the sex story is more in line with Battle of the Sexes. Plus, I usually discuss a lot of my social issues on Tweet Street. So I'll save that story for the next episode of Tweet Street that's coming out this week, and I will focus on this Boda Boda story. Now, normally what Maurice Madeka usually does on his IG page is he usually posts up a lot of the conversations that he has with some of his people, some of his followers, and so on and so forth. So there was this story that was relating to the whole Boda Boda saga. Like, we had the whole Boda Boda saga. I spoke about it last week on Tweet Street. That came just before International Women's Day, where some woman was assaulted. Now, following that, Maurice Madeka got this very interesting question, and I'm going to read it for you as well as his response. So the question reads, "Hi Maurice, with the current focus on the Boda Boda saga, I want your view on something I heard. It is said that Boda Boda riders having sex with females for free rides. Why would a self-respecting woman do that?" Now, his response was, "I know of a woman who fucked her Boda guy because she was curious. Her curiosity came from the fact that he was well-spoken and had the physique she liked. She invited him over, asked him to take a long shower, and according to her, that was the best fuck of her life. The brother induced orgasms where her fellow corporate colleagues had failed. The only reason he was a Boda was due to social economic reasons. His parents could not afford to educate him beyond fourth form. It is a reality that humans unfortunately judge each other and use a criteria like your career and how much you earn to assess your social value. But the truth is, the vagina and the penis only respond to stimulus applied. If high value in society was the determining factor in sexual satisfaction, I would have no clients. Regardless of your social status, if you have game, no one can take that from you. Refrain from discrimination. You may have a high social value, but your penis operates like a tuk-tuk. Even pilots who fly jetliners around the world at 31,000 feet above sea level have failed a vagina at ground level. The express highway in Nairobi is a masterpiece, but I can assure you some engineers there dealing with complex math can't induce a female orgasm. Do not underestimate soft tissue. The vagina is equally a demanding project." Now, obviously, any woman who's reading shit like this and who's heard the whole terminology of, broke dick is great dick would probably agree to this wholeheartedly. And I won't lie, in quite a number of cases this is true. The only thing is, it's a very interesting stereotype which actually tries to hide the fact that a lot of us guys do not know what it is that we're doing in the bedroom. A lot of us guys do not know how to have good sex. Like, we know how to have good sex with the bodies that we have, but we don't really know how to pleasure a woman in terms of like the knowledge of the female anatomy or, just giving a woman pleasure. Like, all we know is go stick it in there. Probably you can eat her out, but you don't even know how to replicate that in someone else. And I feel like that's one of the biggest misconceptions that usually goes around in the social space right now in regards to, sex and where your socioeconomic status might actually factor in. Because at the end of the day, it's not like they compare, and the fact that people will always talk about how this broke nigga or this guy that didn't have this or this guy that didn't have that is very well known for, fucking people well, while they'll also not want to mention that there's also this high-level corporate guy that might actually be good, will continue giving this stereotype that broke guys have good dick, and guys who have means, guys that are at a high economic status, do not know how to give it to a woman, which I think is a lie. Like, I kid you the fuck not. There's babes that will bring out stories about how their boss, who will definitely make 2, 3, 5, 10 times more than them, will fuck them better than their husband that doesn't make as much. Just the same way, I have spoken to babes. I have even spoken to a babe that I know personally who has openly told me that she has fucked a broke nigga and hated the dick that he provided. Like, it does not compare your socioeconomic status, your expertise, your professional situation to the kind of dick or the kind of sex game you have. And I will discuss this at length because I have noticed that this is really eating into time, because I feel like there's a huge misconception and a huge stereotype that comes with the whole idea of broke dick being great dick. Like, I honestly feel like this is something that we should look into. And guess what? I might even end up discussing it very, very soon on another episode of Battle of the Sexes. Because for now, we do need to move on to our main topic of today. And over this past weekend, I was on YouTube for a little bit and I stumbled on a video by this lady known as Melanie King. That's the name of her channel. I'll see if I can link it under the description of this episode. And she was talking about how men don't approach pretty women and how guys nowadays are not approaching attractive women in social environments, at the club and shit. And she had some very interesting takes on it. And I'm not going to lie, most of what she was talking about was how it's not worth it nowadays for guys, and the kind of humiliation that we're going through, the whole harassment thing, the whole rejection side of it doesn't seem like it's worth us going to approach the babe. And I found her thoughts on it to be pretty interesting. But in as much as I do agree with everything that she did say, and I actually liked what she brought forward, I felt like it wasn't really enough of the reasons as to why it is guys nowadays are finding it hard or just not approaching women as openly. They're not doing it as publicly. And another part of the reason why I also figured I should discuss this is because I've also spoken to one or two other babes who complain that guys aren't approaching them, or it's like there's no guys around that are really making their moves on them, even though they are actually trying to look really, really good when they go out and shit. So I figured, you know what, I will look into this entire topic and I will discuss and give my thoughts on it, but I need to give two disclaimers before I get into the reasons why I feel guys nowadays aren't approaching women. And those two disclaimers will most probably kind of help make this entire thing a lot more bearable. So the first one is, I'm not going to include the talk of sexual harassment, the Me Too movement. I'm going to avoid it as much as possible, because if I get into that bit in and of itself, I feel like, one, it doesn't really embody a pretty huge reason as to why it is guys won't approach women per se, at least in a casual sense. And also, it's a bit grim and a bit sobering of a topic that will end up making this podcast not as entertaining as it probably should have been. So I'll leave that one aside. And the second disclaimer that I'm giving is I'm going to center this around Nairobi, because this is the stomping ground that I know. This is the dating market that I'm aware of. And the thing with Nairobi is people have mostly moved away from the idea of openly approaching babes to, getting a referral here and there. So this babe, or this and this person knows this babe, and it's like you trying to get close so that this person can hook you up with this babe. That's mostly how it is here. But back to the original bit of all of this, which is why it is guys aren't approaching babes. Now, Melanie King spoke about how it's not as practical, like it's not a very good idea for us to approach babes nowadays because it just isn't worth it. Like, it doesn't feel very practical to do so. Like, you leave where you're at, you go to a group of babes and you try and you talk to one of them with all of these babes, and there's one that's gonna try and always make it seem harder than it probably should be, or be the negative influence that ends up cock blocking the entire situation. So like, you're doing that, you're trying to talk to this babe, you're trying to approach this babe, and it's amongst a group of babes And it's not like this other babe is going to leave her friends. She's going to stick there. So at what point is it really going to be good for you to make a move? And normally in a lot of cases, you find that you don't really have that much of an option, which is why you'll find most guys will want to go and try and hit on a babe when she's either going to or coming from the bathroom, because at that point there's a lot less influence around her. She's probably a lot more open, and she's, well, definitely out of that whole situation with her friends, so it's probably going to be easier to try and talk to her. And of course, I'm sure there's a bunch of babes that are busy listening thinking, oh, you know what happened to guys today, like this whole thing of confidence, like we don't have enough confident guys that are actually willing to make a move. And I get it. Yes, the world that we live in right now, we don't have as many confident guys that will openly go and make a move to a random babe. But then again, you think about it, it isn't really as a result of us becoming wusses or anything. It's just the world that we live in. Why the hell would I openly go and try to hit on a babe and get rejected openly? You know, something that's actually quite humiliating and embarrassing for guys, when I can go find out her IG handle, you know, go try following her. If it's private, you know, hopefully she'll accept. If it's public, then I could probably follow her. Then I'll go ahead and message her, bada bing, bada boom. If she likes the message, or if she decides to respond, it's cool. If she doesn't want to, it's not. If it's a negative reply, it's okay. The thing is, both of those will be fairly private. Fine, she can show her friends and shit, but still, there's a certain level of privacy to it, and I won't be as openly humiliated. Now, I go and I start howling at a babe in public, and she rejects me and she laughs with her friends. Like, at what point is that supposed to be okay for me? Like, I get it. You know, we'll get stronger and we can be okay with the rejection that'll come with it, but does it mean that we have to go through it all the time? Like, I can get that rejection is a part of life, and you know, people shouldn't particularly be laughing at you, but people laugh at people when they fall. Like, it isn't that, you know, lack of stability is an abnormal thing, or tripping or being clumsy is something that all of us can't do and it's only a select few. But even though it happens to everyone, people still get laughed at for that shit. And the same thing happens with rejection. So you might as well skip all of that and go for the more virtual side of things. If I'm rejected on social media, then it's okay. At least if I didn't do it publicly, the humiliation won't be as bad. And anyways, when you even look at the risks of it, the whole idea of the reward versus the consequences. If the reward is, you know, she gives you the goods, or she decides to date you, and the consequence is rejection if she doesn't accept you, then considering there's so many other babes that are on social media, that are there in real life, that are not as hard to approach, that are definitely closer to us, are there, then why the hell would we take the risk and go and suffer the possible humiliation, or go for the potential humiliation that rejection will come with from a random babe? That doesn't seem like a very, very smart way to look at it. And anyways, a lot of the fine babes that are there right now will have a pretty good followership on, say, IG or some shit, and you're approaching a babe, she's on like 5 figures and shit, she's got the K, maybe she's verified and everything. You're going to try and hit on a babe like that, and she looks at you, you look like some version of a regular guy, it's not like you're upper echelon and shit, and it's not like you're blowing stack on her, and all of a sudden it's like, why should I waste my time on him? Like, trust me, even attractive guys get rejected. And in that case, why the hell would I go and risk my chances with her, when alternatively, you have the red pill movement, the MGTOW movement, which have pushed guys and told them, you know what, go work hard, build your shit up, and then eventually you'll have your pick of, you know, fine babes like her, finer babes than her. You know, she might approach you, she might not, but either way, there'll be a hell of a lot more babes to deal with, so you shouldn't probably deal with her. Like, more and more guys are being exposed to that, you know, possible reality, and they're like, why should I go and approach a babe when I can go ahead, make more money, and then she'll probably be more receptive to me? Like, doesn't that seem like a much better option? And I can get it. You know, there's a lot more babes who are like, oh, we don't really care about the money, or we don't really care about this and that. You know, we just want a regular guy. Well, considering that the majority of people on the internet right now are talking about, oh, you know, we don't want no broke niggas. Oh, we want to be gifted. Gifting is a love language. Oh, I like when a guy buys me this. Like, what do you expect guys are going to think? Although, all of that aside, all of that mentioned, all of that said and done, I feel like the most important, I feel like the reason that carries the most water as to why it is guys are simply not approaching babes nowadays at clubs, at social events and shit is very simple. Babes are simply not approachable. Attractive women are simply not seeming attractable to us guys in general, just period. Like, it's not like the babe isn't fine, but it's not like we're getting the signal that, you know what, this babe wants to be approached. Like way back in the day, 70s, 80s, 90s, early 2000s, hell, even the 2010s to a certain degree. People would go to a club and you'd probably be able to scope out a babe that's looking for a guy. You know, a babe that's open to being approached. She'd have fairly open body language. She'd probably be sitting, you know, maybe with a couple of friends, but she'd be looking around and shit. Like, you could kind of gauge that shit out. But let's look at nowadays. Shorty comes through with her friends to the club. All right, fine, I can get it. One, you know, there's times when girls are just going for girls' night. It's not like they're trying to look for guys or shit. Like, they're literally just going for girls' night. And that one I can understand. But even when that's not the case, when they've dressed provocatively, they've gone to the club, they're seated, it's literally all of them together. For me as a guy, that's 5 babes that's along with you, or 4 babes or 3 babes that are with you that I'll definitely have to deal with before I get to you. And imagine what happens if I walk up to you and I ask if I can talk to you a little bit on the side. You know, there's a pretty good chance everyone will look at me and be like, as who? You want to talk to her as who? And as you're looking at the babe, she's giving you a poker face, or she's not giving you an open look or anything. So it's not like you even have that reassurance to try and approach. And on top of that, shorty, even though she's not even gonna be like that, even though you haven't approached yet, you're looking at this babe, and if this babe isn't dancing with her friends and only with her friends and not even stepping out of her shell, it's not like she's looking around. She'll pull out her phone, she'll record for stories, and she'll sit and she'll scroll through IG while she's at the club. Like, I kid you the fuck not, she will be scrolling IG while she is at the club. Now, if the phone wasn't there and she was looking around a little bit more, then maybe one of us guys would come and hit on her. But considering that she seems occupied, she's got IG, she's got her friends, she's got her drinks, she's got shots, then at what point am I supposed to think that there's space for me in there? Simple question. At what point? So at that point in time, you're just left thinking, you know what, I might as well not bother with this and just go ahead and look for the chances that at least will be in my favor, which is, say, when we go for a house party with a couple of friends and they introduce me to the babes themselves. At least there, you've gotten a soft entrance, so now you can go in and, you know, try and hit on the babe on your own terms and shit, but at least you won't have started yourself off by hoping that she doesn't reject you in a humiliating way. So, in conclusion, let me just say this. The same body language that we used to look for as guys so that we can, you know, feel like a baby is attracted to us or is open for us to go and hit on them is gone. Like, most of that shit gone, poof, finished. So we do not see the signs that would make you seem a lot more attractable to us, a lot more approachable for us as guys. And as a result of that, we're going to second guess ourselves a hell of a lot more, and we're going to not take as many chances as we probably could because we do not have the indicators that we might actually be successful. And maybe that's a babes thing, or maybe it's a tech thing, or maybe it's a now thing, but it's definitely a thing. And if people want us to go back to approaching women physically, then it's something that needs to be discussed and sorted out. Otherwise, we're just gonna stick to going the virtual way, and we're going to stick to referrals. But anyways, I might be wrong about all of this. Maybe there was something that I didn't mention. Maybe there's a bunch of things that I should have covered that I shouldn't have left out. I want your thoughts on this. The DMs are open. On IG, it is at Breaktime on Westside. On Facebook, it is also at Breaktime on Westside. And on Twitter, you can slide into my personal DMs, which is at Bagaka the D. Thank you so much for listening all the way till the end. And if you are listening through Castbox, feel free to drop your thoughts and comments below, and I will attend to them accordingly. And I will catch you guys on the next break.